There's a man on a bike out there. Hi! Hello! Welcome everyone! I'm Arron, otherwise known as YaroShien. I am the Dungeon Master here on Explorers of Eardsihimmle. And I thought, hey, Kedra would be upset at me if I didn't actually try and make more videos over on the channel here, so I'm going to make an active effort, starting today. She's gonna be a little upset, just like a little. I said that I wanted to start making a series of videos going into the advanced 5th edition system that we have moved to. And I've also began to notice, especially over on YouTube, there's not a lot of videos that kind of delve into the source book. And for those who don't know, that this is probably one of the biggest 5th edition source books I've ever seen in my life. Over 600 pages for just the player handbook, or the adventurer's guide in this case. But before we really get into that, I'm going to give you guys a slight primer as to what decisions we actually had to make in order for the transition to be as smooth as possible. This system is probably made more for those who are veterans with the A5e system than it is for newer players. And I say that quite kindly. I'm not trying to, rock the boat here, but I'm going to be entirely honest. This system is fantastic if you already know how to play 5th edition, but it does kind of lean into the idea that you already need to know a lot about 5th edition in order to kind of implement a lot of the tools that you are going to find inside of the AG. When I got this book some few years ago, I began to realize that there was a lot of details in here that I feel like might need a little bit more explaining, and there wasn't a lot of YouTube videos, mainly because not a lot of people have moved over onto this system just yet. So, how do we solve this problem? I think that we're gonna have to go by this chapter by chapter and see how well that goes. I do say this in full honesty. I want to hear your opinion. I want to hear what you want to know, because there's a lot in here that I feel might be an answer to a question that you've probably been asking that 5th edition has not been able to fulfill. And I do mean fulfill. There's a lot in here that I am really genuinely happy about, but this would never fit into just the 5e SRD system that we've come to expect in the 2014 and the 2024 editions. And also, I'm going to be entirely fair here, and I do need to make this quite known, as the last video that I did when I was just talking at you guys, somebody had left a comment saying that I was, unreasonable after I started yelling, to which I said, go fuck! My point here is that your complaint means nothing to me. Listen, I am genuinely assuaged from going back to WotC or Hasbro, given the fact that a lot of their activities have led to us moving to this system, not just only because what I had come to recently find out is that D&D Beyond is going to be locking all of your content if you aren't subscribed. Yeah, that's right. If you are not subscribed, either as a Dungeon Master or as a player, go fuck yourself, I guess. Anyways, back on the source of the topic I had. I felt like it was relatively important not just only to put on my proverbial Dungeon Master hat, but also put on my hat as somebody who once had been an instructor. Also, before we actually really get into this video, we are in the video already, but I also do need to kind of give the disclosure about this. We are an affiliate of EM Publishing. We are trying to sell this book. Also, you could just buy the PDF as well. But also, you don't actually just have to, even buy the PDF. They have an A5e Tools website that you can just log into and use that at your table for free. So, with that being said, I feel like we should probably start at the top, and that is character creation. Alrighty, let's be honest. It's a chunker of a book. 600 pages, and that's not even to include, just gotta go around the whole fucking table here, because I decided to set up the studio like a madman. With this being what you would hand to your players and say, hey, make a thing, this is your DMG. It's pretty much full of all the same stuff that you've come to expect out of a DMG, a lot of recommendations, a lot of traps, a lot of the, outworld stuff, maybe a few other little elements that kind of help expand the game as well, but, Everything you actually genuinely need in order to start playing Advanced 5th Edition is going to be in the AG. But the toll really here is just, do you know how to play 5th Edition? And do you want to play 5th Edition more as you would have played in the past? And what I mean by that is that if you come from 3.5 or Pathfinder, this is going to be a lot more familiar. That's right, it's the actual 5.5 edition that it should have, could have, would have been if, you know. Anyways, what you can kind of expect in terms of character creation is relatively the same. But here's the thing. Some nomenclature has been changed. Instead of races or species, it is now referred to as heritage. I think heritage is a little bit better, and the reason why I think heritage is, well, a little bit better is mainly because you could be a half-orc now, but you could have had some element of Aasimar somewhere far, far back in your family history. Or if you're like a Goliath, but you had like some form of dwarvish in there, and now it's just this recessed gene. Heritage just really defines as to where your bloodline comes from, and it tells that story a little bit better rather than defining race or species. Because like when you're playing D&D, you're playing people. Come on. So heritage has all the main core heritages, and you know, you got your dwarves, you got your elves, you got your dragonborn, gnomes, halflings, yada yada yada. But there was probably one small thing that I'm not a huge fan of. You're gonna get these opinions throughout the video, just so you are aware. One of the things that was ultimately changed inside of this edition of the game was the fact that they slammed Aasimars and Tieflings together and called them Plain Touched. Morris, that was a bad decision. Don't see why you had to do that. I personally think that it would have been just fine just to make Aasimar and Tiefling anyways, but instead they created an entire heritage and then just, so yeah, like you don't get the Radiant Soul, you don't get any of the cool Tiefling abilities, and it is just assumed that, you know, by the time you hit level 10 and getting Paragon stuff, which we will get into, that's when like things kind of like begin to up the game, but it felt very, very wrong. It still feels wrong. I just homebrewed it myself later on, and we'll get more into that later. Some stuff has been kind of relegated down in terms of simplicity, but that's not exactly a bad thing. Like, for example, if you're an elf but you wish to play an Eladrin, you might find that there is no Eladrin heritage, but you can build out an Eladrin using culture, background, and then destiny as well. This allows you to kind of just turn the knob a bit, make the elf a little bit more your thing. However, on top of that, in terms of like creating with heritage, every heritage comes with what is known as a Paragon feature. A Paragon feature, basically at level 10, where I feel like it would actually genuinely matter, gives you one of multiple different kind of abilities that are available to you. You choose one, and that becomes your Paragon feature. So, like for example, we'll take an elf here, and we'll go over one of their Paragon gifts, such as Mystic Rapport. Let's say you're a fighter and you're slowly building yourself out to be kind of like a magic person, but you don't get the proficiency in Arcana. Once you hit level 10 as an elf, as a fighter, you can take Mystic Rapport and you gain the proficiency in that skill. Late game skill bonuses are always really cool to me personally, but especially at level 10, for the most part, if you're starting either from level 1 or level 3, I recommend level 1, you might find that once you hit level 10, when the campaign actually starts ramping up to, let's say, slightly more cosmically inclined creatures, you might find that those extra Paragon bonuses are going to be extremely necessary. Also, let's not forget the other particular bonus that you get from it. Basically, Mystic Rapport allowing you to have telepathy. You can talk to people without ever having to use your voice. You just use your mind. You can communicate with people through their mind now. That's such a broken ability that used to just be something that you get from a spell, but now it's just part of your heritage features. Alright, so you've picked your heritage, you know who you are, you know what you are, so let's move on to culture. We're going to be talking about both the argument of nurture and nature and basically where your zip code is. So your culture is actually, you know, where you grew up. And sometimes that does play a role into how your character operates. Like, for example, if you grew up in kind of like this college town, so like if you're a bard, you grew up in a college town, you got really close and rubbed elbows with a lot of the same kind of like upper class people in terms of colleges, you're going to have certain benefits to that. And yeah, you can be literally anyone, but you also could be literally anywhere. So where you grew up does kind of matter, and it also allows you several different kinds of boons, and the collegiate basically allows you to kind of have this aura of a learned person. You have a bit more knowledge than those who you just genuinely run out onto on the road. So as a collegiate, you get to choose one of the features that is within the collegiate. So, like, for example, you could do philosophic mind, you can be a practice artisan, and you also could do studied discipline, which basically just says that, hey, you choose one of the options in studied discipline, furthering your ability to learn more or to kind of expand your customizability, and you just learn a skill and all the tools that come along with it. This also allows you to kind of gain the knowledge of your immediate surroundings. So your language doesn't come naturally from your heritage, although there are certain options where it can. I personally still do believe that those like tieflings and Aasimars still gain the celestial or the infernal language just by, you know, the nature of their being. But also you begin to learn languages based off of where you grew up, which is one of the cool things that you kind of get as you begin to build your character. Even at level 1, you have a lot of stuff to start with instead of what feels like a measly sliver of what you would expect from a level 1 build in D&D. Now, from there, we go into backgrounds. Basically, what you were doing or kind of like what it is that you were professionally good at before you decided to start adventuring. This is backgrounds. You can kind of expect what you would get from backgrounds. However, backgrounds also play a slightly different role in terms of character creation. It also is where you get your ability score improvements, or your ability score increase. Basically, your floating points, the ones that you kind of get when you build your character. In this system, I do feel like kind of letting you choose how your background makes your character who you are is a little bit more important rather than just being ultimately way too free. Not to say that there isn't an immense amount of customization in this book anyways, but when it comes to scores and points and stuff like that, I feel like kind of locking them in with your background instead of just your heritage makes a lot more sense. I'll even pull up the soldier here for you guys. Watch me do it. So, of course, you get your skill proficiencies, you get your tool proficiencies, you get your language, you get quite a bit of equipment as well, obviously, but also you get the military bearing, which is you being able to talk to other military people, and they genuinely have a rapport with you. However, over time, there is a possibility where you might be able to convince old soldiers to join your cause. At a certain point, you'll be able to gain at least 8 of these people. Not sure what you're going to be able to do with all of them, but hey, now they kind of just work for you. Alright, so you've chosen your background. I believe that we are done. Or are we? Many have asked this. Many have wondered if whether or not there'll be truly a paragon of goodness or a deceitful little evil creature. Or neither. However, in this system, it's a little bit more different. And quite luckily, it also comes with a bunch of boons. We have seen several times the argument of alignment. However, alignment has now been fully replaced with destiny. I wish I had a bottle so I could pour one out for Cade 6. But in this system, it is known as destiny. Destiny, where you want to go, where you want your character to go, what their design is, what it is that their story kind of impacts upon to the rest of the campaign. So, like, for example, my friends, say that you are an agent of chaos. There is a destiny called chaos, and chaos does come with quite a number of boons. So chaos isn't exactly good or bad or fucking evil or whatever, but rather it is the idea of freedom, the releasing of your chains. And chaos can be good, it can be evil, but it is entirely based off of how you wish your character to be and how they wish to fulfill their destiny. Destiny is just the path you're on, let's just be honest. But for example, if you play the game and you have the destiny of chaos, let's say you have a source of inspiration and you suddenly now have an inspiration point into your character sheet. This inspiration point is something that allows you to be expended in order to use your destiny feature. And the destiny feature allows you to use certain mechanics in order to benefit you or your party. And sometimes it can seem quite interesting as to how it shakes up the system. However, that's not the end of the destiny. Say you have actually fulfilled your destiny. You have achieved a form of chaos that nobody has been able to contain you. You are truly free. You are broken from all chains. Well, now that you have fulfilled your destiny, you get your fulfilled destiny feature. So this is something that is across the entirety of the board of A5E. Now, while the AG only has a number of destinies, there is a lot more out there, as there has been a ton of content released over the course of the past, I believe, 5 years now. And it's constantly growing as more and more books get released. Alright, so we've kind of gone over character creation, and there's a lot here that I simply just don't have all the time in the world to talk about. This system is something that I believe a lot of people have been asking for when it comes to 5th edition. 5th edition is very bare bones, and hey, that's not a bad thing. As I said earlier, it did the job it needed to do. It got people playing the game. I come from 3.5, and I was also in the era of, hey, if you touch 4.0, you might get herpes. A lot of my friends that was playing Dungeons and Dragons at the time was playing 3.5 because all the content was in 3.0. And once 4.0 came around and, couldn't make anything for it because they slammed the OGL shut, oh, it's almost as if we never learned from history, I guess. It became an extremely difficult game to play. And so, what do people do? They just created a system that felt more aligned to how they wanted their play to be. However, as time has gone on, 5th edition became easily accessible, and D&D Beyond became easily accessible. However, this also kind of landlocked people into 5th edition. If you wanted to go play 5th edition anywhere else, you were at the whims of either Roll20 or some other VTT that probably didn't have all the things that you wanted for your game. I know for a lot of people they're going to sit there and say, but Roll20 is the system that we use in order to run our games. Yeah, me too! But hey, guess what? It sucks! The whole thing about Roll20 sucks. The fact that it constantly tells you the same exact thing every single time you log into your goddamn game, it just takes up a massive chunk of your chat space that you need in order to see what had happened during the last session. I don't need a reminder. Listen, if I could just turn that off Roll20, that would have been fine, but it's been there since day one. I'm over it. I know what you want me to do. I'm not buying your subscription. And even if I did buy your subscription, you still put another fucking block there that doesn't need to be there. Anyways, my point here is we found alternatives in order to play this game, and it certainly was not very easy considering the fact that the A5E character sheet isn't exactly charactermancerable. It hasn't been updated since its initial creation, and I do feel kind of bad because I'm not here to yell at the guy who made that character sheet. He just wanted to play A5E with his friends, probably more than likely, and just made the character sheet and made it available to everyone on Roll20. That's cool, that's great, but it does desperately need an update. There is a ton of content that has come out for A5E, and we really need that if you're going to be playing on Roll20. I don't recommend Roll20 because, for very obvious reasons, I'm not happy with it. But we use Foundry and Forge, which also has a subscription model, but it is a one-time paid subscription model. We're a business, it's a tax write-off, it's fine. But the A5E system inside of Foundry and Forge is significantly better, and also it does work well with a drag and drop system, especially from the compendiums. Also, everything is there. Even stuff that, like, you didn't expect yet is already there. I have seen quite a lot. However, if I was to make one small recommendation to the team that is working on the Foundry edition of the game, I would like us to actually start seeing you guys implement the pets and sidekicks system as well. Just dropped everything. Why? Character creation probably will be something that I do physically over on a stream, maybe at some point. We will see. If you feel like you are still a little lost when it comes to switching systems, don't be afraid to sit there and admit it. I would sooner have you just accept that 5E is where you're going to be able to play this comfortably. But if you are looking to push your game to the next level, funnily enough, this is going to be the system for you. Advanced 5th edition is not a huge or hard transition. It's just that there are a ton of small things that you have to learn in order to begin playing the game. Like, for example, one of those small things that I have noticed from 5th to A5E is what is known as the fatigue and strife system over the exhaustion system. Fatigue is physical exhaustion, strife is mental exhaustion, which is great because if you only just want to be able to affect a spellcaster, strife is going to prevent them from doing more spellcasty things, where fatigue probably won't matter to them. And that's kind of what the issue with the exhaustion system is as a whole, until you start hitting like those really dangerous levels. But strife actually begins to affect concentration. It begins to affect a lot of other specific details. It prevents them from being able to do somatic things. It prevents them from doing verbal things. It starts building madness points into the character. Alright, so we've gone over the character creation of 5th edition, and we've also kind of gone over some of my personal gripes with not just only this, but also with a few other things as well. Now, if you guys are expecting a little bit more in the near future, let me know in the comments down below. Tell me what you want to hear about. I promise you I will be getting into some of the nitty-gritty into this in the future, but I just feel like a bit of a primer is going to be a lot more easier to consume rather than just, I don't know, just trying to shove an entire book into your skull. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are interested in checking more stuff out, there will probably be some links around here, and you'll be able to see our advanced 5th edition campaign known as Age of Exodus, where I dungeon master a brand new heroic campaign from level 1 all the way to level 20. We're currently at level 5. It's interesting and cool, and there's trauma, you know, D&D. All right. Bye, everyone.